You don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate when it comes to yourself as a leader, from your team who you need to recruit to help you manifest that, and from the patients that you get to lead, right? So you don't get what you want, Dr. P, get what you tolerate.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And we are excited to be with you here today. I will tell you this. We are in a series, as you know, if you're a regular listener, and we're talking about the you don't get what you want. And I'll tell you what, this third one is going to be, this one's going to be good, folks. As you know, right before every podcast, Dr. Stephen, you and I jump on, we get a chance to chat about, what do you think we're going to chat about on this one? What are we going to dig into? And I'm excited to dig into this one because number one, it's going to be very convicting. And number two, it's going to be extremely motivating and inspiring as well. So I'm really excited about this, Dr. Stephen. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you with us. If you're a regular listener, just so good to be together with you each and every week. Again, this is part 3 of a series. Part 1, if you didn't catch it, was you don't get what you want, you get what you measure and reward. That was part 1. Part 2 is you don't get what you want, you get what you model. And today, part 3, you don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate. Dr. Stephen, let's dig in.
Yeah, Dr. Pete, this is a big boy, big girl pants conversation, right? So for my CEOs out there, listen up. So this is going to be one that turns the lights on, right, for you, and which is great news. This is great news, right? Like as CEOs, what we like is brutal facts, right? So brutal facts. Listen, we're all on purpose. We're all on mission. We all want to make a bigger impact and make a bigger income. If that's you, then get out your pen and a piece of paper because we're going to get after it today. Because what we're going to be talking about here today is ultimately where success lives in a sustainable way, in a predictable and sustainable way. And that is when you have alignment, right? And when you have alignment between 3 things, very specific things, your core values, your vision story, and your behaviors, right? So the core values are, what are the things that are most important here for you and your business, right? So your vision story is, what does success look like? Like, where are we going, right? Like, what's the next iteration of this business 12 months from now, based on where we're going to be 3 to 5 years from now, the ultimate view, right? So when you have alignment between your core values and your vision story, the next thing to line up has got to be your behaviors, right? So these behaviors are, how do you choose to invest your time, energy, focus, and money, for example, right? So these behaviors, Dr. Pete, this is where we all fall down, right? So listen, remarkable does not imply perfect, right? So I want to make sure that you don't shoulder that load and just recognize that you've got to keep a clear eye on your core values and your vision story. Make sure that your behaviors, the choices that you make, and the things that you tolerate line up specifically. They're in alignment, right? So otherwise, that's going to lead to stress. It's going to lead to struggle. It's going to lead to tension. It's going to lead to rubs and breakdown, right? This is where you have subluxation, right, between your core values, your vision story, and your behaviors, right? Wherever you have any contradiction leads to destruction, right? And the degree of destruction is a reflection of the degree of the contradiction, right? Sound familiar, right? So that's what that means, though. Ultimately, this is a conversation around behaviors, right? So we're gonna look at this from the perspective of, listen, you have the exact business that you deserve. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You have the exact business that you deserve, right? And I want you to receive that in a way that makes you feel like, you know what? I want to be empowered by this conversation, right? I want to be empowered by this conversation. There's no judgment in that, right? There's no righteousness in that, right? There is a level of conviction in that, right? But, from that conviction, what we're going to say is, all right, so what are you going to do with it, right? Because all of us at all times should be thinking, how can I better this environment? How can I better this business? How can I better this impact? How can I better our reach? How can I better our team? How can I better our execution? Because we're in the business of saving lives, right? So we're going to act like it. And this conversation this is going to get after it, and we're going to look at it from a framework of, you don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate when it comes to yourself as a leader, from your team who you need to recruit to help you manifest that, and from the patients that you get to lead, right? So you don't get what you want, Dr. Pete, you get what you tolerate.
And I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say, leaders, you don't have the luxury to tolerate things for long. So I think I just want to be very clear here that, our role, in this podcast is to continue to keep us, you on that knife edge when it comes to, being a remarkable CEO. It's real easy to get distracted in life and in business and life. It's really easy to get pulled to the left or to the right. Our hope is that you would stay focused, right? Because the difference between busy and productive is your ability to focus. And I'll tell you who depends on that. Your family depends on you to be focused. Your team depends on you to be focused. Your patients, your community, our profession. So this is why this is important. You are a leader, right? You're listening to this podcast. You're a leader. You're leading people. If you're the CEO of your business, you are leading a team and you're leading your community. And here's the thing, where does the fish stink, right? The fish stink starts from the head, right? So you've got to get to the head. You got to get to the start of it. So if it's off with you, it's going to trickle down. Okay. You don't have the luxury to be out of alignment for long. I'm not saying we're not out of alignment. I'll be the first guy to say, man, I need to get adjusted, right? Like I've been off. I've been out of alignment. My behavior has not been in alignment, congruent with what I value. And I don't know about you, but I have a pretty strong sense of conviction when it comes to, my misalignments. Maybe it's just the way that I was raised, or just a consciousness of my behaviors and my moral compass or something like that. I don't know what it is, but like if my behavior is off, like I get a check like inside my spirit. Like I don't know about you guys, but you know what happens when you feel like, I'm doing the wrong thing, but you go and do it anyway? That thing that checks in you. What can happen is we can actually learn how to just do it anyway and just keep doing it anyway. And that's the issue, is when you do something that's incongruent or out of alignment with what you value behaviorally, one time that's okay. But when you repeat it, when you get into the rhythm of being out of alignment, and that's something that's tolerating, right? So one time that's a mistake. Okay. Once a mistake, we all make mistakes. It could be even an accident. It could have been an accident. I totally did that accidentally. Okay. The second, it's a mistake, right? You repeat that again. Okay. Now that's an issue, because now you've begun to tolerate that. Right now there's consequences. We were talking about consequences, Dr. Stephen, earlier. We talk about our kids. There's consequences when you're a leader and you tolerate behaviors, and this is all about behaviors. When you tolerate your behaviors in yourself that undermine, and you may say, I'm not really sure the direct cause and effect. Well, guess what? I would err on the side of the cause coming from you and going into your own life, analyzing your life. Because if you're looking at your team, you're looking at your practice, you're looking at your life, and you're saying, I'm not sure why this effect is going on, I'm going to go back and say, let's start with me. And so the behaviors is, where am I acting? Where am I behaving that's incongruent with the outcomes that I want to create based on the vision that I see as being what is success, and based on what I have as my core values, the things that matter the most to me, the things that are my operating system. Where am I incongruent? And I'm going to say this, if we don't, as leaders, take time on a regular basis, just quiet, peace, just be in quiet and just think about, how am I doing? How am I doing with my behaviors? How have I been doing, living in alignment with my values, with my vision? It's easy to not slow down and stop. We talk about slow down, right? Speed up. This is one of those slow down moments right here in this podcast today. I really want you as a leader to think about, okay, where am I out of alignment? Where have I had that check where something is off, but I've tolerated it. And you know what? I'm not going to tolerate it any longer. I know right now I'm speaking because I know as I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to myself. Okay. And I already have things that are popping up in me that I'm like, you know what? That area, you've done that. You've been tolerating that. And I have no idea with what not tolerating is going to produce, but I'm willing to go there, Doc. Doc Steve, I'm willing to say, you know what? I feel convicted. And I feel like I just got an invitation to go ahead and make some adjustments in my life. And I don't know what exactly the outcome is going to be, but I really believe if I can make an adjustment here, because I've been tolerating, I'll just let me be brutally honest with you. I've been tolerating in my life being critical. I'm just going to be real. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Dr. Stephen, once I throw myself under the bus. I've tolerated. I'm not going to go to town on this because I could go really deep, but it goes deep into my heart. But I've tolerated in my life being critical, being a critical person. I'm critical of other people, critical of myself. I have. And this is the story I've told myself. But you're good at it, and people need you to be critical because it really helps them. But at the end of the day, it actually isn't. I'm not saying that having a critical eye and being able to see things and have that doesn't have its benefits. What it wasn't the critical eye, it was the critical tongue. And there's a big difference between what I see, the ability to see something, and how I respond.
So good. Yeah.
And so what I realized was I was tolerating in my own life with my wife, with my children, with myself, with other people. I was tolerating a critical eye and a critical voice. And I made a decision just even in the last few weeks. I am not tolerating the voice of the critic in my life anymore. Not going to do it. And I'll tell you what, I'm on a journey right now of disciplining myself. I've got accountability in my family. I've got accountability with myself. I will not tolerate. I do not tolerate me doing that. Do not tolerate this guy, that old person, that person who I allowed to talk. And I linked it to what it was, Doc, that I believed I needed to be that person to be successful, influential, to be able to have the control or whatever in my life or whatever it might be, whatever it's in my personal life or my business, whatever. And I'll tell you what, that was a flawed way, a subluxed way of thinking. It was out of alignment. It was incongruent with my values, right? It was it was out of alignment with my own values, out of integrity. And I suffered because of that, and other people were as well. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, let's take a quick break and talk about Chiro Matchmakers.
Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the right person for the job. If you're looking to hire the ideal chiropractic assistant, Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the specific person missing from your team so that you can get back to using your talents to serve more people. Or if you're looking to hire the ideal associate doctor, CMM can help. Chiro Matchmakers helps chiropractors like you find the ideal associate doctor to unlock your practice potential and get you the freedom that you desire. To learn more, go to chiromatchmakers.com.
It's conversion, retention. Day 1, 2, 3, that's conversion. Day 3, 4, and beyond, that's retention. Retention begins at conversion.
Coming to these seminars is literally changing the way that I practice.
I mean, the coaches are absolutely incredible. The information that we've learned, we just resonate with so much.
Things are just clicking and we're able to do more and serve more patients, and it just keeps getting better and better.
Retention is based on goals. You're going to be their Sherpa. You're going to be their doctor. Real doctors help people achieve their goals. Say hell yeah.
I think it's very important for the doctors to bring their entire team. They push you, and that's why I choose to invest to bring my team to the immersions, because it stretches you beyond where you are in practice. Everyone beats the same drum coming away from the immersions.
It's like going to the top of the mountain. Once you've been there, you have a whole different perspective.
I feel like I'm leaving here with a set of tools and a process to how to get from point A to point Z.
Energy is everything, and you go back to our lives on Monday morning with a clearer vision and a clearer purpose about exactly where we're going. Who's with me, guys?
I've grown so much just every immersion I've gone to. It is making me feel more calm and more at ease and more confident in what I'm doing every day.
And now let's jump right back into our conversation.
Great distinction. The idea of having a critical eye, which is the gift, and having a critical tongue, right? And having that critical voice. And I think, I'm certainly closing my eyes, nodding my head right now on this, right? So I'm sure that's probably landed with you, whether it was with your spouse or whether it was with your children, maybe it's with yourself, right? So it's like literally what people, they need from you and expect from you is that gifting, that critical eye. Help me see things, right? But when I hear things coming from you, let me hear compassion, right? So let me hear that framed in love, right? So with my best interest at heart and a sensitivity around that. So if I weren't talking right now, I'd be taking notes, right? So this is something that, I think we all walk with a limp here, especially leaders. It's just like, as a leader, whether you're leading your family or you're leading your team or you're leading your patients or leading your communities, now more than ever, we probably could use an extra dose of grace with everybody, just recognizing everybody's just having, an extraordinary time right now. So as much as we could have clarity of view and have that critical eye serve us and them, it's how we deliver that message, right? So that's a great illustration of tolerance. So when we talk about ourselves, it's like, all right, so where does the breakdown happen for us as a leader? Is it what we're tolerating from ourselves as far as behavior? How are your morning rituals, right? How are you doing as far as getting to work, getting to the office, ready and prepared? How are you as far as being timely? How are you as far as being sensitive to the needs of the other people around you? How are you as far as following your process and your systems, the expectations and agreements that you've already laid out with your team and your patients? How are you doing with that? All right, so right down to your own personal behaviors. How are you? Are you getting checked regularly? Are you getting adjusted regularly? How's your diet style? How's your movement patterns? How's your thought life? How's your sleep patterns, right? So all of these things, we have exactly the health that we deserve, right? So right now, you just ask yourself, it's like, okay, so when I think about that, am I empowered by that, right? Or am I receiving that in a way it's like, man, that's just like, I'm actually just a victim of my circumstances, right? So like that's disempowering. So we want to have a CEO conversation right now where you feel empowered, where you feel like, okay, so I've got a clear picture of where I am right now, where I want to be next, and what behaviors I need to change to get me there. So that's just me as a leader, right? So then you look at your team and you say, my team is looking at me also, right? And in my experience, Dr. Pete, the team, you're going to set the high watermark most likely, so at least in a sustainable way. And there were times when, I would look around and I would be frustrated at my team. And I'd be like, you know what? I have exactly the team I deserve right now. Right. And I always found that to be really convicting and really empowering. Right. So encouraging might be a strong word. So I found it empowering, though, where I said, man, what have I been tolerating with my team? Have I been tolerating just letting anything but an A player on my team? Did I start with good wood, right? Did I have an A player? Have I tolerated that, or am I telling myself stories, right? Like I tolerate that B player or that C player right now, because frankly, I don't have the time, the bandwidth, and the energy to try to replace them. Like the idea of trying to replace that person, man, that is way more work than just tolerating them right now, even though they suck in their position, right? And I've told myself stories like that before. Have I tolerated having a wrong person in the wrong seat, right? Somebody's in the wrong seat because you know what, it's what they want or what they prefer. I'm telling stories, right? Oh, they've been here forever. Do I have them doing the wrong work? Right? They're focused on that. And I've just tolerated that. I haven't had the discipline of identifying for them exactly where I wanted them to focus. Or maybe it's them just not doing it the right way. Maybe either our systems are the shortcoming. Maybe our systems are broken model. Maybe there's a breakdown in execution, whether that's because people have gotten lazy, we've drifted from the system that we laid out, or we've just let our training go sideways. Man, I've looked around at my team and said, I've got exactly the team I deserve right now because we have not been committed to training. I have tolerated weak trainings, right? So man, there's so many ways for this to go sideways. And, the reality is it can feel a bit overwhelming, but if you have the lens to look at everything and say, I have exactly the team that I deserve right now. I don't get what I want. I get what I tolerate. What have I been tolerating? And, there's been seasons conversely where I've looked around and I'd be like, I have exactly the team I deserve right now. They are awesome. We've made bringing A players into this business a high priority. We've got the right people in the right seats. We have not tolerated anything but that. We've just kept working until we got that right butt in the right seat. And then we made sure that they knew what the right work looked like and they have them doing it the right way. Man, our trainings have been world-class. We haven't tolerated anything but world-class trainings. And man, the fruit of that has been extraordinary. And looking around, we have exactly the team that we deserve.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about all of you who are listening, and you're thinking to yourself, well, what do I do now? As I reflect on where we're at. So, Dr. Stephen, you said a bunch of really important things. And one of the things that I've always held true to myself, it's just a standard thing, but I like to hold myself accountable, which is my floor is their ceiling. So as far as philosophically, like as my philosophy and my philosophical clarity and conviction and my philosophical understanding is going to be, my floor will be their ceiling for my team. And then my job was philosophically to pour into them, because I said their floor will be the ceiling of my patients. So I always think of floor and ceilings, and I don't know why that works for me, but it works for me. And so I'm always trying to raise the bar so that for me, the floor goes up and their ceiling goes up. And I just think of that because I know I have to continually be holding myself to an even higher standard. So then this is there. So whether it's philosophically or whatever area you want to look at, so that's the first thing. Second thing is this: you can't go back to the beginning, but you can create a new beginning. And here's how I've learned how to do that. It's called apologize. It's called apologize. There's something that's really powerful when a leader can apologize for not knowing or not doing what they know to do. It can be really powerful with the team. So for example, if you hired somebody, but you did not do a really great interviewing process, and you didn't onboard them thoroughly, and you didn't really give them a clear, role and description, and it's been a little bit wonky ever kind of since the beginning, you know what you can do? You can't go back to the beginning, but you can create a new beginning. And the way that you do that is you apologize. Okay. That's how you start it, right? It starts with recognizing, right? The first thing an CEO do is, one of the things we do really good is we identify. Identify is a real powerful trait of a great leader, is identify what's going on here. So to tolerate, first thing we have to do is, if we're an area if we've tolerated, we have to identify it. Okay. So we need to have perspective. We need to see it. Then once we see it, then we say, okay, what is that area with the people, with the team? So the next step would then be, all right, so I'm going to apologize either publicly to the whole group or to an individual. And you say, listen, Stephen, I need to apologize, for this and that and the other thing, whatever that might be. And say, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love for us if we could kind of see where we've not done things right. And let's recommit to doing this right. If this is a person that you want to keep around, and say, are you good with that? Could we recommit and then go back to the beginning and say, I'd like to go about this in a new way. I'd like to do this the way that it should be done, because maybe I didn't know this and I'd like to do this right. So are you willing? Can we do this together? Do you agree to walk with me through this? So let's reset expectations. Let's make agreements. Let's relook at your role. Let's redefine this. Hey, we haven't been training. We totally have gone off the bandwagon. I used to do it back in the day, but you've been hired and you haven't had it, or you've been with me for a season. Now you haven't had it because you've had it and then not had it. You're probably like, I don't know whether it's important or not. I don't know. Right. So I've done that to you. Okay. So I want to apologize. Okay. First. Second, re-agree on what the expectations are going to be, whatever that might be. Say, okay, we're going to get back to training again, or we're going to do our meetings, but we're going to meet this way. We're going to have an organized meeting, or we're not going to let our training deteriorate into a meeting, or we're not going to tolerate letting new patients take over our meeting and be like, we'll push it to next week or whatever. We're not going to tolerate, you name the thing, right? So apologize. Then number one, reset expectations. Number two, and make that agreement with your people. And then number three is execute. Go back to the basics. And when it comes to the team, there's a few rhythms that I see. Number one, your team training. Blocking a time simply to pour into your team and to be together with nobody else in the office. Shut her down, lock the doors. It's quiet and you get to focus. Focus on what we do. How do we do what we do and do it better? Train. You know what? That's commit to that every week. Every single week we do this. Number 2, commit to meet with your whole team every week to talk about and discuss the business, to identify how are we doing, to discuss what do we need to discuss, to start solving things, right? We do this on a regular cadence every week. Do that. That is a gift to your team to do that, to block that time, do that. And the third is make sure you give your people, each one of them an individual, give them clarity around what the objectives are for the role and exactly what's expected of them, what the priorities are for their position, how you're going to measure that, manage that. Start doing that. These things, I'll tell you what, if you, and these aren't not simple, but if you do these things consistently, you will see that relationship with that person, even if it started sideways, get right back on track. And if it doesn't, you know what? Hey, we got to go our separate ways. And that's also totally cool. And I'm going to do better the next time. So anyway, actually, that's kind of my approach when I think about the team. I love it. Because if I catch this in the middle of a podcast and I'm like in the middle of, and I'm like, oh man, I'm surrounded by a team right now. What do I do? That to me would be, and then there's other things we could talk through, but that's maybe a place to start.
Like all things, I think, inside out is, a good visual on this. I always picture that like a concentric ring, where you as the leader are at the center, and then you go one concentric ring out and you have your team, and then you go another concentric out and you have your patients, and then you go another concentric ring out and you're, in the community. I love that concept of floor ceiling. I sketched out a little infographic while you were talking there. I think it's a great visual. I really love that. As we look, we have to have integrity around all of these things, right? So if you always go inside out, like start with yourself, be like, okay, am I in check? Check my behaviors here, because you can never get your team to sustainably do what you're not doing, right? Just like you can't get your patients to do what you and your team are doing, right? So it's just like, you just have to go all the way back, start with yourself, inside out, go outward ring to the team, and then we get and spill into our patient base, right? So our patient base, they're just kids, just like children. It's just like we're raising successful human beings, right? Inside of a chiropractic office, right? And just like kids they'll listen to 20% of what you say, but they see 100% of what you do, right? And you got to remember that. It's just like your team is just watching you and your patients, right? So, your patients are just watching you and your team. And just like with parenting, there's no bad kids, this is bad parenting. There's no bad patients. We've just had bad leadership, right? So they might be great people, but bad patients, because we really haven't been super clear around what does an ideal patient look like? How do they behave? And then we haven't set up expectations and agreements with those people, or we've tolerated them breaking down those expectations and agreements, right? So every time you tolerate a behavior, you've just set a new agreement, right? So every time you tolerate a behavior, you've just created a new agreement. We're going to tolerate that. Oh, apparently they tolerate that now, because the last 3 times I've missed an appointment, nobody said anything. So I guess we tolerate that behavior. If I show up early and expect to be seen early, I guess we tolerate that behavior. Hey, if I just show up late, it doesn't really matter. I guess the appointment time is just a suggestion. They just throw me back, and I get they told me that we don't do consultation during the adjustment, that, but I can ask all the questions I want and the doctor will stay until I've been satisfied. I guess I can do consultations. They say that I have to go to workshop, in the first 2 weeks of care to make sure that I understand my role in the health and healing, but I haven't been to workshop, and 6 weeks in, I guess I don't have to go to workshop, right? So there's all these things where you're just like, what are we tolerating? So remember, you have exactly the patients you deserve, right? Again, no judgment, but high conviction. Just look around and be like, I have exactly the patients I deserve. Maybe your patients are awesome. 80% of them are awesome. 20% of them are a disaster. I get that, right? So it's like, you have exactly the patients you deserve. Doctors, CEOs, leaders, this is empowering. That means that we have influence here. We're not at effect, right? So we have influence here. That's how you have to take this perspective of like, I've got exactly the practice I deserve, because I don't get what I want. I get what I tolerate, right? So, you might look around and say, actually, things are sideways around here. And I can actually chase it all the way upstream and figure out where this thing went awry, and recognize that, yeah, you know what, I've got some corrections to make here, right? So I'm going to start with myself. I'm going to then get with my team. Then I'm going to get with my patients. And I'm going to start with that same correction methodology, which is to apologize, right? And to be able to say, Pete, listen, first thing I want to do is I want to apologize. I've really let your care get off of track here, right? We've moved completely off the rails, and I just want to recognize that. And you know what? I'm going to take responsibility around that. As you know, my perspective is you hire me for my expertise, but you pay me for accountability. We had an agreement, right? So you showed up and we agreed on what the problem was and how it was affecting your life, and review that. And then we had an agreement around goals, what we're trying to accomplish together. These were our objectives. We had immediate goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, right? And we agreed on that, right? So, and then we laid out a care plan for you. And we said, this is what you need to do to get what you want, right? So this is your job. This is my job. We talked about the three-legged stool of getting your adjustments and rhythm so that I could actually do my best work for you and we could get you the results you're looking for. We talked about you breaking the bad habits outside of here, right? So that you're not interfering with our work, right? And then to add the exercises that you need to do to strengthen your spine so you hold your adjustments longer and we can make the progress that we both want, right? So, you know, unfortunately here, as I look back over the last 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is, guys, just say, we've just let this whole thing go sideways. So I'm going to suggest, you know what? It's time for us to make a correction. Let's do a course correction here. Let's get this thing back on track so that we can get you the results that you're looking for. I want to start with a new examination. We're going to take some new films. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about that. We're going to lay out a new set of goals and a care plan. Dr. Pete, I want to give you my best work so you get the best possible results. Okay. How does that sound to you? Like, it's just a come to Jesus moment where you can just say, let me take ownership over it. Let's lay it out. And let's recognize that, you know what, this is exactly what they want from us.
Yeah.
They want us to step up and be a leader. Okay. Like literally, that's what they are paying us for, right? So they hire us for our expertise. They pay us for accountability. So at the end of the day, we know that accountability means them actually doing the things that we've told them to do. Start doing this and stop doing that so that we can actually deliver on a promise. Right. And it was a promise that if you come into our practice and you do what I tell you to do, right? So you start doing this, you stop doing that, you're going to change your health outcomes and you're going to change your health experience for you and for your entire family. So Doc, you know what, at the end of the day, let's take a look around the landscape of your life, of your business, of your practice. Recognize that you've got the exact business that you deserve, right? And that should be encouraging. You have the exact team that you deserve, and that should be encouraging. You have the exact patient base that you deserve, right? At the end of the day, you don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate. So you got to ask yourself right now, tomorrow's a new day. You're going to head back into that practice and everyone's going to be looking at you because you're the leader. And you have to ask yourself, what are my new standards for myself, for my team, for my patients? And then get some alignment consciousness between your core values, your vision story, and your behaviors.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.